Thank you, Amrita Vaniji, for taking over the baton from the previous session. And thank you, Vijayji, for a wonderful session, like you always do. Bahu Samichanam Dhanyavada Nama Namaha Shubharatri. So, welcome everybody to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Hope you all had a great weekend. We certainly had a great weekend, the satsang weekend here, and always look forward to getting back to our weekly routine. So I'm always excited to, for the Monday session to resume our weekly routine, like I always say. So let's continue. We are on the topic of surrender, and that is where we are going to start talking about the principles of surrender today. So we will cover probably the first two today, and we will also reinforce the concept of faith that is very integral or at the center of having a spirit of surrender for God and Guru. So let's get started like we always do by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Let me share my screen and we will get started. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so we'll start with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Te Jagat Gurum Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Radhe Radhe, a very warm good morning, good evening again to all of you. So let's get started today. We are discussing the topic of surrender. It all started from the shloka from chapter 2 that we are doing a recap on. It started with the concept of grace, and grace leads to surrender, and that is where we have picked up this shloka from chapter 18, which talks about the 6 principles of surrender. Just so that where we are actually in chapter 4. However, we are doing a recap again for the benefit of new participants. We did that quickly for chapter 1. Right now we are in chapter 2 and we are covering all the key concepts of chapter 2. And grace is an integral core concept to be understood on the path of devotion, and that is where we are right now. So let me recite the shloka and then you're welcome to follow along. And I would encourage you to turn on your videos, and you're going to get preference if you turn on your videos anyways. So let me recite it and then we'll get started. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. All right.
Yeah, Shyamji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Radhe Shyamji.
Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful, very nice, Shyamji. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Shyamji. Rahulji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Rahul.
Radhe Radhe. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Nice. The word here that is being used is Shashwatam, and Shashwatam means eternal. If you look at this material world, it is being called in our scripture as Dukhalyam and Ashashvatam. One is because it's a place of misery, that means there's no lasting peace here. And secondly, it is Ashashvatam. Ashashvatam means it is not eternal, because when the Nemitic and Atyantik and Maha pralays happen, the material world, it ceases to exist. And here God is talking about, when you do surrender, you get my eternal abode. Eternal abode is something which goes beyond the realm of this material creation, which is only 1/4 of this creation. 3/4 is the eternal abodes, which are Vaikunt, Saket Lok, Devi Lok, Shiv Lok, Golok, all that stuff. And depending upon how you pick your Ishtadev and which bhav you worship God, you get that eternal abode. If you do Vaidhi Bhakti, you go up to Vaikunt. If you worship God in the form of Ishtadev as Ram, you go to Saket Lok. If you worship God as Shiv, you go to Shiv Lok. If you worship God as Devi, you go to Devi Lok. If you worship God as Krishna, you go to Golok. Within Golok, the Brajaras. If you worship God, forming a personal association, you get the Brajaras. You can treat him like his master, as your kid, as your friend, and most intimate relation, that is as your beloved. So these are all eternal abodes that we are talking about. Just to put a quick context into it. Let's pick up the remaining hands and then we'll continue.
Yeah, Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Wonderful, very nice, Aparna ji. Okay, you can pick up the remaining 5 hands or so.
Sam ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Sam.
Radhe Radhe. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasada param shantim sthanam prapasyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Prapsasi. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Sai Ram ji, Radhe Radhe, please go
Radhe
ahead.
Radhe, Sai Ram ji.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Wonderful, very nice, Sai Ram ji. Okay, we can pick up the remaining 2 or 3 hands.
Pragi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Pragi ji.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very nice, and thank you for turning on your camera, Pragi ji. Radhe Radhe.
Surya Prakash ji, Radhe Radhe, please
We'll
go
pick
ahead.
up the ones who've turned on your videos and move on quickly.
राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Thank you very much, Suraj Prakash ji. All right.
Sumesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please
Radhe
go
Radhe,
ahead.
Sumesh ji.
राधे राधे नितिन जी राधे राधे एवरीवन तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very nice, Sumesh ji. All right, we can pick up Aarti ji and Mrinal ji as well. Aarti ji, because of the Jasti story you told us once, please go ahead and then we'll pick up Mrinal ji as well.
Okay, Radhe Radhe, Aarti ji.
राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Wonderful, Aarti ji. You are reciting with a lot of command and fluency, which is pretty awesome. Thank you. We'll come back to your story later today. So please be ready with your story. It's always a pleasure to hear you.
Surrender, I have to share it with you. Please give me a chance, okay?
Looking forward to it, Aarti ji.
Looking forward to. Yes, Mrinal ji, please go ahead.
Mrinalji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe, तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Thank you.
Radhe Radhe.
Okay, the last two real quick we can take and then we'll move forward. We'll freeze it. So Riyaji and Rameshji, real quick.
Riyaji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very nice. Thank you.
राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe. Last but not the least, Rameshji.
Radhe Radhe, Rameshji.
या राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Wonderful. Very nice, Rameshji. Thank you. So let's move on. So let's look at some of the keywords here. It is saying tam ev. Ev means exclusive. Then Sharanam Gach, that means surrender. Surrender exclusively. It's not like you are surrendered to your relatives, you are surrendered to your friends, you are surrendered to your bank balance, you are surrendered to your own strength, you are surrendered to somebody else. You are only surrendered to God. Evam. Ev is the operative word. And Sarvabhavin means with your whole being. Whole being means every pore and fiber of your body and your existence needs to be directed towards it. Okay. And then, because of which, what will you get? You will attain perfect peace. And that is through Tat Prasadat, means by His grace. It's not through your effort. It's not like you are entitled to it. It's by His grace. And you will attain perfect peace. That means the peace that we get here intermittently, little bit of here and there, that's not truly a peace and it's not lasting. And then you get the eternal abode. We already spoke about the concept of eternal abode, which is the 3/4 of this universe. And that does not cease to exist whenever Mahapralay or other pralays happen. The eternal abodes of God, they continue to exist. It's only the 1/4 of this universe that ceases to exist. And even in the eternal abodes also, the topmost prize is Golok Vrindavan, Brajras. Okay, so it is like within God's realm also, the blisses, it's like you have sugar cane, then you have sugar, you have mishri, you have jagreen, all are sweet. But rasas keep on getting finer and better and, kind of a deal. So each prize is worthy, but the topmost prize is the Brajras. Kunjaras that we talk about. Anyways, in order to get that, we need to be talking about surrender. Journey is equally as important as the destination. And here we are focusing on the journey. And let's try to make it enjoyable so that we can strive with a lot of joy at hand. So today we are going to discuss the 6 principles of surrender. And we are going to derive some inspiration from nature, the dry leaves, and go into some deeper concepts here as well. You see some dry leaves here? Yeah, good. I wanted to make sure you enjoy these leaves. So let's start with a story on faith. Okay, this is a story that Swamiji told over the weekend on his satsang. I loved it. I'd heard it before as well, but I thought it's a good time to bring this to life today. So here's a mountain climber. Okay, her name is Brenda. Maybe she was Vrinda in her previous life, I don't know. But in this life, her name was Brenda. And she was almost halfway to the top of the tremendous granite cliff that she was climbing on that day. Then what happens? Now she was standing and she was taking a break in between because it's a pretty strenuous exercise when you do mountain climbing. And guess what happens? When she was resting, her safety rope had snapped against her eye and she was wearing contact lens, which fell down when she took that breather. Then what happens? Now, great, she said. Great is in a sarcastic way. It's not truly great. Okay, I hope you understand that. She said, I am on a rock ledge, 100 feet from the bottom, and so, still way to go to the top. And I have lost my sight because without her contact lenses, her vision became very blurry. And at that moment, what does she do? She looked, and she's looking down. Of course, it fell down, but she was hoping against hope. And hoping that, somewhere that lens would have gotten stuck, that she could recover. But she realized it had fallen. And she panicked. And she started praying. We all pray, right, when we panic, especially if you believe in God. And she prayed for calm, and she prayed that she may find her contact lens. Very simple request. She lost it. Her vision was getting blurred, and she requested for it. Now what happens? It's a very interesting and very, very powerful story on faith. Okay, she's not Prahlad, but it just goes on to illustrate the point that when we do that, either through a conscious exercise of our free will, or if we are forced into a situation like in case of Vrinda or Brenda, or in case of Draupadi also, by the way, it happened. So let's see what happens now. At this moment, she was reminded, let's see what happens now. Now, when she got to the top, a friend examined her eye and her clothing for the lens. They were hoping that it might have gotten stuck in her clothing, but it was not found. So she was trying to be calm, but she was sad because she could not clearly see across the range of mountains. And at that moment, it reminded her of a thought from the Bible verse. The eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth. And she said, Lord, you can see through these mountains. You know every stone and leaf, and you know exactly where my contact lens is. Please help me. Our scriptures say God is defined as bin pag chalahu sunehu binu kanha. Kana, not kanha. That means God has his eyes and ears all over the place. God is the one who can walk without feet and who can hear without ears, who can see without eyes. Our scriptures say the same. So she remembered a verse, scriptures, and then at that moment she let out a prayer. And when she really let out a prayer, she said, you know exactly where my lens is. Actually, she believed it. She would have believed it at that point, that she might have listened to that verse and said, God, his eyes and ears are all over the place. So please help me. That prayer went out. And when they hiked down the trail to the bottom of the cliff, just imagine the probability of finding a minuscule lens in that entire hill where she has lost it. They met another party of climbers who were coming off the cliff, and one of them shouted at, hey, you guys, anybody lost the contact lens? Somebody who's coming down, they found that lens. So if you're already surprised with this story, how did they find that? It is startling, right? How can somebody so down could find it? Let's see how did that miracle happen. So you see this picture. An ant was moving slowly across a twig on the face of the rock carrying it. So it fell on some place, an ant saw it, God inspired it, she picked it up and started walking on a twig. So much that it was visible to the hikers who were coming down below. So this story, it doesn't end here basically. Her father, who was a cartoonist, he put this picture afterwards. And he put this picture saying that, Lord, on behalf of ant, Lord, I don't know why you want me to carry this thing. I can't eat it and it's awfully heavy. Lens is not something that would attract ant towards. If it's something sugary, sure. But something inspired it. I can't eat it and it's awfully heavy. But if this is what you want me to do, I'll carry it for you. Okay, that is the spirit of the ant. So this story basically goes on to tell, basically in life we get what we deserve, not what we desire, and he knows what we deserve. Even if a single silent prayer truly from the heart comes out, God has a rule to reciprocate it, right? That principle that we keep talking about in Bhagavatam, ye yatha mam prapadyante. Basically, that prayer was genuine. God said, all right, let me show Brenda my, God reveals him from time to time in increments to some people, right? So there is a reason behind everything that we may not be aware of. So this is a very interesting story on faith, and surrender is all about faith that we're talking about, that we're discussing. So now let's get into the concept of surrender. 18.62, it talks about the principle of surrender, Bhagavad Gita. Let's look at those 6 principles. The first principle says to desire only in accordance with the desire of God. Anukulasya sankalpa. That is the first principle. The second principle is, just to reiterate, same in a different way, it says pratikulasya varjanam. That is not to desire against the desire of God. The third one is to have firm faith that God is protecting us. Fourth one is to maintain an attitude of gratitude towards God. And it is going to coincide with thanksgiving, by the way. I don't know how it's happening, but it is happening. When we get to the fourth principle, we are going to take one principle at a time. And by the time we reach Thanksgiving, we'll be on that principle. And something similar happened during Valentine as well. We were discussing Madhurya Bhav. To see everything as we possess, we belonging to God. Yes, Anita ji, you had a question?
Yes, Radhe Radhe, Anita ji.
Radhe Radhe. Nitin ji, can you please share the last slide? I joined late. Just for a moment. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And the last one is, it's a very important one. So that is, after you have, if you're practicing all 5, then give up the pride of having surrendered. That is very important, because what happens is when you start practicing principles, the pride starts building up as well. So you simply give up the pride of having surrendered as well. That's the 6th principle. We'll get to each one of these in great detail. Okay, so let's move on to the first principle. So you see the leaves here. It reminds me of that movie Mohabbatein in Bollywood. Always, these nice leaves that are floating around. So there's something to be learned here from these leaves. And what is that lesson? Let's look at that. The lesson here is that if you look at this leaf, what's going on? Is it stuck? Right. So to desire the desire of God in accordance with desire of God. So a dry leaf, if you look at it, it is completely surrendered to the wind. It does not complain whether the wind lifts it up, takes it forward, backward, drops it. Basically, it is flowing with the wind, whichever direction it takes. Absolutely surrendered. This is the concept of surrender. And similarly, it is said we too must learn to be happy in the happiness of God. So situation, circumstances, we'll get into a little more specifics around it. But a leaf is exemplifies, when it is blowing along with the wind, that it has no will of its own. If it bounces it, it'll bounce. It drops it down, it drops. It carries it away again. It'll go again. It is completely subject to the will of the wind at that point. So this is a principle where you say you desire in accordance with the desire of God. Now, obviously, a question will crop up in your head that, how do I know what is the desire of God? Right? We'll tackle that as well. So for now, let's move on. And the second one, both go hand in hand, actually, but we will look at some of the examples, possibly today or tomorrow, to illustrate this point. Not to desire against the desire of God. Now, here you see some people in the boat. So there's a story, it's a humorous story, and just to illustrate the point, all these people, they are traveling in a boat. All seem happy, but what happens is this boat hits a rough weather after a while, and there is a pandemonium that breaks out because it has hit a rough weather. And the captain of the ship, the guy who's right up front with the tongue out, he announces that the boat is going to drown. It looks like we are not going to survive this storm and the boat is going to drown. So everybody, there's a starts running helter-skelter. They are in a panic. But the girl, last but one, what she starts doing, she has a small, a bottle of water. She starts picking up water from the sea and starts pouring it in the boat. Doesn't make sense at all. But that's what she starts doing. Now, after a while, what happens? The storm abates. So the captain announces, looks like God is kind to us. We have survived the storm and it looks like nothing is going to happen. We will be safe. And that moment, this girl starts taking the water from the boat and start putting it back into the sea. This is the one. Okay, who's doing that, just in case. Now you would wonder, why is she doing that? Now somebody might say it is a criminal offense to do that when you're not helping out the cause of other passengers. You're putting water in, but a bottle will not make much of a difference, right? In this kind of, it's just like drinking water. Will it increase the weight of the ship and make it sink faster? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But that's what she did. So somebody asked him, what is the, can you explain your weird, aberrant behavior around this whole thing? Because when it was sinking, you started putting water in it. And when we were supposed to be saved, you started putting it out. Why? How would you explain your behavior? So she said that when you said the boat is going to drown because of that rough weather, I thought maybe God wanted that it's time for you to log out of this world. It's time for us to move on. We are going to get drowned. So I thought, okay, let me support God's will. That is what God's will is. Let me support God and God's will. But when you said and then he said, why did he do that? Started pouring the water out of the boat. He said, when the storm abated and the captain announced that we are going to get saved, then I thought maybe God has changed his mind. So then I started helping God by pouring the water out. So it's a humorous story in that sense, but then it illustrates the point that we should try to align our will to the will of God, no matter what, even if it may seem detrimental to us. That point, that is the spirit of surrender. That is the whole point. But we haven't still spoken about how do you know what is God's will in a particular situation, right? Without that, discussion is not complete. We'll get into that. So usually when people get wealth, fame, pleasure, luxuries of the world, things are going good for them, they forget to thank the Creator. Has anybody complained to God? Why me? Why are you giving me, why did I hit the jackpot? Or why am I getting so many good things in life? I'm getting famous. I'm getting so many likes on Facebook. Has anybody complained to God about that? Nobody has, right? So when things are going good, nobody actually says, why me? However, when things start going bad or you start experiencing suffering, then God comes into the equation. Why did God this to me? Okay, why did God this to me? Otherwise, God was non-existent. All of a sudden, we call upon God like a cosmic bellboy. Can you please explain what is going on and why should I deserve this kind of a deal in life, right? So this is an attitude that needs to be looked at in perspective and needs to be corrected, is the spirit of surrender. This is what the two principles are talking about. Now you would say, okay, I will do that. I get it. But then how do I know what is the will of God in a particular situation? How do we know that? Now, if Edison, when he failed and he said, okay, I failed, maybe that's will of God, he wouldn't have retried, assuming he was a believer, I don't know. And then if he had not tried, we wouldn't have been able to see each other like we are seeing each other today, because we have bulb and light out there. And that is one of the reasons we have Bhutran on us. Because of so many things people have enabled for us. Not because they have departed and become Bhutarins means for other pranis. Okay. All the people who are helping us out in sustaining ourselves. It's farmers, industries, and people who are making car, and people who are bringing water to our home, electricity, invention of electricity, whoever did invention of bulb, all the things. But the point is, all these inventions wouldn't have taken place if somebody would have, at the very first instance, they had failed and thought that it is God's will. So what is it that compelled them to continue to work on that? Or what is it, how would we know that if I'm failing on particular thing, I need to retry or I need to give up? So the answer for that is, this is one concept that will help us in good stead on the path of spirituality. Your intuition would guide you. That have you put in your best, or is it worth trying it more? Okay, which might give a better result. That is something you need to harness. And when we do something which actually aligns to God's will, you get a feeling that, you know what I did was the right thing to do. Intuitively, you would know that what I did was in alignment or in accordance with the desire of God. Now you say, what kind of feeling would that be? Let's look at it through some analogies, okay, to understand this point. So, has anyone of you played tennis? You can raise your hand. If somebody has played tennis. Sandhya has played tennis. Okay. Jyoti also has stayed. I think people who play tennis do PhD. I don't know. There might be a coincidence or a correlation there. I mean, there are exceptions too. Like I have played tennis. I played leagues, but I couldn't get to that level. Anita ji has played tennis as well. Okay. Now, can you tell me, when you hit a shot, do you know whether you have hit it the middle of the racket, or it had hit the frame, or did you hit it that it has hit the sweet spot or not? Do you get that feeling? I see Sandhya nodding her head. Jyoti, how about you? Or you don't care basically? Okay, you do. Okay, great. Anita ji, yes, you want to say something?
Radhe Radhe, Anita ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Even in cricket also you feel the same thing. If
All
you
right.
it feel the middle of the bat, you get that sound lot, like you for sure you know that it's a 6 or a 4, and same thing happens in tennis. That's for
Beautiful
sure.
point. Very true. So as you look at it, you get a feeling.
I
People who have played sports, they would get that. And you
I
brought in
didn't get
cricket.
that app. I didn't get that photo, Nitinji. It was too short of the time. Even I raised the hand, but it was late.
Which photo?
Thank you.
That
Which photo?
slide
That
that she
earlier,
asked for in the beginning.
This one?
that too short of the time. No, the behind one.
Okay.
No, not this one. The first one. The ant with the ant.
You got, okay. You have to be quick.
The very first slide.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for thanking Anita ji. All right, let's move on. So yeah, so we were talking about this concept. So if you look at it, yeah, you brought about cricket. That is a very true thing. I've played a lot of cricket, and you get that feeling. When you hit it from the middle of the bat, it's a sweet spot, it's called. And that sweet spot would tell you that it has gone. Now I'll show you a picture that you would resonate. Look at this picture, hitting the sweet spot. This is a shot that Dhoni had played to win India the World Cup. And after which, hitting that shot, he was like, I know the job is done. So people who have played cricket or any sport would know that when they middle it, they would know whether it is going to get caught or it is going to sail over the ropes. That is the feeling you get when you do the right thing. That is the intuition will guide you whether in that particular situation you have aligned with the will of God. Now somebody might come and say, what if my intuition is not guiding me? That is also a valid question. There are two possibilities. Either your intuition has told you, yes, you really aligned with the will of God, or it may not. So we have got that scenario covered for you as well. Okay, so that you don't go with any self-doubts here. Now let's go there. If that happens, what if my intuition does not guide me? It can happen. It's not always that you get that thing. Now, what do we do in that case? In that case, you still have control over a few things. The first one is sincerity around that act. And the second one is purity of intention. When you exercise these, this would serve as your insurance policy, even if your intuition is not aligning with the will of God. Make sense? That covers you in every sense now. So there will be situations where you do your best in that particular thing, but you're not sure whether I'm actually aligning it to God's will or not. Then you do it with a sincerity and purity of heart, purity of intention, that this is God. Maybe I'm not right, but this is the best I can do or think of in this particular situation. And God, seated within as Kshiro Dakshai Vishnu, will make note of it and give you credit for that. Because he also understands we are not perfect as yet. Till we are fully surrendered, we cannot perfectly align to his will. And he understands as work in progress, the only thing we have control over is our free will, of course, but then the intention behind the action that we are doing. If it is driven by compassion, love, and care, then you cannot go wrong. But if it is driven by anger, vengeance, or bitterness, then there are chances you may go wrong. Even though you might be thinking, I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing my duty, or I'm being as perfect as I can be in this particular situation. So when we approach anything with love, with clarity, with purity of heart, we cannot go wrong. We can never go wrong actually in that case, because God will still give you credit even if it is not in accordance with his will. So this is how we align to first two principles. Now, first two principles, they seem pretty straightforward, but let's look at some of the scenarios. Now, I'll ask you, if in our life, in our situation, when let's say something happens in our life and we say, why did this happen to me? Or we complain about something. Do you think we are aligning to the first and second principle in that case? Whining or complaining about something in our head? Anybody who wants to take this question? Yes, Varun.
Varun ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Can you see me?
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, definitely if you're whining and complaining, that doesn't mean that you're surrendered, because I remember a very important takeaway from Kripaluji Maharaj, right? He says that the entire premise of this Kripa is very simple, is to sincerely have this faith that whatever is happening in my life is Kripa. And I remember last time we had discussed about this de facto relationship, right, which we have with God, that is about the law of karma. A subtle esoteric takeaway from Maharaji about this, that even this relationship is basically kripa. This slapping that Maya is doing to us every single time in the form of disillusionment, dejection in this world, that's basically kripa, if we take it from a higher perspective and outlook. So it's as simple as that. Put in your best, and then whatever happens, leave to God, because this material intellect of ours cannot comprehend God's divine grace. So instead of trying to try to understand that right now, it's going to be an exercise in futility, right? So the best policy right now is to build this faith based on each and every event in our life, that what's happening is for the best, and then slowly and steadily we incrementally move towards that elevated consciousness, and then we automatically come to understand more and more things. So hope that helps.
Beautiful, Varun. Subtle esoteric concept you said. Love that part. Very nice. I think you've got the rock solid Tattva Gyan from Maharaj Ji. So always a pleasure to hear from you. Very true. So whenever we whine, we complain, or start playing a victim card in our mind, we have already violated the first principle of surrender. It's a very simple thing. It's like we don't have acceptance around it. So we've already violated that principle. Not having a prasad buddhi around it. Right? Like now, Aarti ji is going to ask, if prasad buddhi is the way to go, then why did Draupadi accept her fate as well? That is a very valid question. We'll get back to that as well. Let's hear from Keshav ji. It's always a pleasure to hear from Keshav ji.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Keshav ji.
Yeah, I can
Please
mute
go
it
ahead.
now. Yeah, my opinion is little different. Whatever happens to me, in the beginning, I used to say it's God's will, but now, no, it's not God's will. If it was like this, then Arjuna was saying what is happening is okay. So did he say it's God's will? And will Krishna accept this? That it's God's will? He did not. So what is happening to me is not God's desire. It's not God's wish. It is because of my karma in previous lives, which I am facing now in this life. And now how to react to what happens to me, I have to be in equanimous of mind, some buddhi, some bhav, okay to react. What is wrong is wrong. What is right, only that is right. And what is right is that God's wish, God's desire. So it is totally a different story. What we do in life, we have to understand. Vivek Buddhi will help us, guide us, tell us what is right, what is wrong, and how to react. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Beautiful point, very true. So, yeah, just to build on that. So the law of karma is, the lawmaker is God. So if we accept law of karma, of course, what is happening to us is something that we are the authors of our destiny. So obeying the law of God, that is also aligning to God's will, right? Because God's will dictates the law of karma as well. And that is the reason why, even though the saints have an ability to cut their prarabdha, they don't do it. Because they align to God's will. They have the ability to cut their prarabdha, but prarabdha is something they still take upon when they take birth. Because that is the vidhi of, or the law of God. Even Lord Ram and Lord Krishna, when they descend on this earth, they take upon, when they have to close their pastimes. So yeah, in a way, that is also indirect submission to God's will only. But this question comes up, do we accept everything? And when does the call of duty comes in? Or when do you say I have to take an action, or to continue to have prasad buddhi around it? That's a very valid question. Let's hear from others and then we'll build on this discussion. Yes, Monica ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Monica ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone. So my question was exactly the same, Nitinji, that when does the call of duty comes into picture? When do we take a stand? Because if we go by what happened in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjun did what he did, right? Otherwise, so how do we decide all that? That was my actually question. Like what happened in Kashmir, the mass exodus. I mean, how is that? People should have taken a stand, right? I mean, if we don't take a stand, then फिर तो अधर्म फैलते चला जाएगा.
No, that is true. That's a very valid question. That's very true. Arjun had the benefit of Krishna in front of him. In fact, we have to deal with duality. Krishna himself is telling here, he's saying, have, prasad buddhi, or the concept of surrender. And he's himself telling him to propel into action and go against, basically understand the call of duty in that particular moment of being a Kshatriya. So these dualities have to be understood in context, basically, right? What is the right thing to do in a particular moment? God and Guru can guide you. And the power of our intuition, as we harness it more, Keshavji spoke about Vivek Buddhi, right? Vivek, how will you get Vivek? When you understand the scriptural principles, when you get the grace of God and Guru, word guidance of Guru, then your Buddhi will guide you to do the right thing in a particular situation, right? When basically, otherwise, it's very difficult to know in what case you have to subject to, understanding it as a prasad buddhi, and when you can actually continue to perform action around it. And that is where the power of intuition, as you progress in this path, becomes a huge asset. You would know in this particular case, you have to stand up, and you would know in this particular case, maybe you have to accept it as your, prasad buddhi around this particular aspect. For example, if something, prasad buddhi typically happens about things which is uncontrollable for you, right? Something happens, tragedy happens in life, or you thought you deserved a promotion and you didn't get it. Sure, try for it without any betterment. Try harder next time around. Or if something bad happens, you accept it as God's will. It was meant to happen. Maybe a level of detachment was needed from my end. You can't change that. So in those things, you have to have acceptance, prasad buddhi. And in situations where you can do something about it, and it is basically something well within your control, like in case of Arjun, he was a Kshatriya. His job was to protect the broader praja also, not just fight for his right. Then he was propelled to action. And that's what Krishna is telling him to do that as well. So what happened to Draupadi was probably, that was unfortunate at that time, but the way she exercises her options after that, in what consciousness she does that, that was her own choice after that. So that is how it goes. It's not, doesn't mean whatever is happening for good. You keep on accepting it, because you may have to propel into action to take control of certain things. But things which are beyond your control, you need to have an acceptance. When we keep on whining about life in general, that is where the prasad buddhi has to be accepted. But when it comes about taking an action, God says purify your intention around it. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it out of bitterness for somebody? Or are you doing it for the larger good of the society? Or are you doing it for the pleasure of good? All options are there. So it becomes a little dicey, I know. It's not a very black and white kind of a deal. And that is where it's even more important for us to understand the spiritual principle and work under the expert guidance of a guru, because they only can tell us what is the best course of action in a particular situation. Otherwise, our mind can play tricks and actually lead us to some things which may not be even beneficial for our spiritual growth. Forget about doing something good for the society. They're all gray areas. We are dealing with gray here, nothing in black and white here. And these dualities, something we'll have to deal with till we become God realized. It is a pretty profound concept, actually, the more we think about it. But we will start. See, again, the serenity prayer we spoke about. God, give me the strength to change the things that I can, with good consciousness, of course. Give me the forbearance and tolerance to accept the things that I cannot change. And more importantly, give me the wisdom to differentiate the two. More often than not, we start worrying and complaining about things which are beyond our control, forgetting the things which are within our control. So that wisdom is lost. Is it something that I can really control and do something about? If yes, sure, go for it. But when you go for it, do it in the right mindset and intention is what God is saying. Because otherwise there is a danger or the peril that you will do it in a consciousness which will not be uplifting for you. You may incur sin in the process and binding karma in the process. Hopefully it's making a bit of a sense.
Excellent.
If you can't convince them, confuse them. I think that's what I'm doing right now.
No, you're not confusing, you're helping everyone. Actually, there are also some comments aligned with what you said. So I just wanted to read it out.
Sure.
Sri Ramyaji said that, isn't it your circle of control? If yes, then you still need to do something about it if something is under the circle of control.
Yes.
And she asked the same question to Swamiji, where he told, Guru can guide you. But if you don't have Guru, go by your best intentions, which you mentioned, purest intentions.
Simple formula. Guru is the best guide. Krishna will not come in front of you like he did in front of Arjun. Okay, let's first understand. If you want Krishna to come in front of you, become like Arjun. He was a Narnara, become God realized. Then he may in one of his leelas. Second best option is a God realized saint. If you have found a mentor or a God realized saint in your life, done deal. Third best option is the best of intentions that you only can control. That's it. Very simple formula in every situation. Get guidance from Krishna, but don't fake it. That Krishna guided, he came in my dream and that's why I'm doing it. He'll not do it. Go to Guru, seek guidance from him. If you don't have a Guru, do it with the best of your intentions. With the wisdom that is it within my circle of control or not. That's it. There's no other way out from any situation.
Yeah. Very well said, Shri Ramyaji as well. And Rahulji says, Jahi vidhi rakhe Ram, tahi vidhi rahiye.
Jahi vidhi rakhe Ram. Very true. That is also prasad buddhi. Basically, it exemplifies prasad buddhi.
Yeah. And then there is a question from Asvina ji. Even if we say things out of love, people might perceive it differently. How does one go about that?
you can control your intention, not the behavior or the thought process of other people, right? But if you do repeatedly enough, then it usually comes across to people. People pick up vibes, right? Our heart has it radiates electromagnetic waves. So some people, they carry good vibes, some people carry negative vibes, and some people can catch vibes also, right? So when you radiate good vibes for a sustained period of time with the best of your intentions, people will pick it up. But we still have to understand that we have control over our intentions. We don't have control over what other people think. But if people think that you are bad, you don't lower your game. You keep on taking your game further and you do your best, because it's not a horizontal game with people, it's a vertical game with God. So you keep earning your credits and keep uplifting yourself rather than pulling yourself down just because people are not receptive about your best intentions.
Awesome. So we'll take Sunita ji and Anita ji, if it is possible for you to turn on your camera.
Sunita ji and Anita ji, that's a rhyming. Let's have Sunita ji first.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Sunita
Radhe
ji.
Radhe Sunita ji, good to see you again.
Yes.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Nitin
Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Mataji, Radhe Radhe. It is obvious that we have dualities and confusions in our life because our consciousness is not pure. That's why we get encountered with dualities and confusions. So since we cannot get Sri Krishna the way Arjuna did, since we cannot get him face to face to ask questions to remove our dualities, but we have his words, we have scriptures therefore. So the more confusions arises within us, then we should take the help of scriptures and Bhagavad Gita. The more we read scriptures, then our consciousness gets pure, and gradually that duality gets suppressed, and the confusion gets cleared. So that's why we need to read scriptures more and more. And even if it does not work, then what I personally do, that just sit and just pray God intensely, just intense prayer. God surely listen, and then just ask him that, please God, remove our doubts, remove my confusions, so that onwards whatever I do, that will be right, that will be the right path for us, and then leave it to God. And then you can see that whatever is happening or whatever you are doing, then that is for your good and for the good of others. So what I just share what I personally do. Hare Krishna. Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful thoughts, Hare Krishna. Very nice, Sunita ji. Yes, I think you're focusing on your efforts and praying, calling out God with the best of intentions, and yes, God will, the whole universe will conspire to help you when you approach it with the purity of intention. That is how this universe is designed. Right? We're talking about the law of attraction. I think somebody had asked that question in one of the feedback tracker. I thought I'll bring it in one of the session. Actually, we invite the circumstances and situations upon us. So if you start instilling unnecessary fears, don't do that. That is not the purpose of this creation. So be positive, you will attract that. And there's a book, I think, written on this law. I don't actually, that carried a lot of weight. Actually, there's a attraction, and they say universe picks up the negative aspect of it. So don't flood your mind with negative thoughts unnecessarily just for the sake of it. So we have to stay away from unnecessary anxiety, fear, insecurity, and all those kind of emotions. So take solace from Bhagavad Gita, listen to good lectures, read good stuff, and do satsang sadhana. That will eliminate all the kind of negativity within you and fill you with so much of positivity, hope, and enthusiasm that there will be no place for those kind of emotions at all at that point.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate this point. This was beautiful. You know, like what Brenda did in your story and what Sunita ji just mentioned, that intensifying our efforts towards seeking help from God, that itself can be very, very powerful.
Yep, very, very powerful. We looked at Brenda's example, you know, how God can, amazing. That example is amazing. There's another story of Dr. Prasad. By the way, there was Dr. Prasad who was going to Calcutta for a conference. And on the way, his flight, it hit some rough weather. So because it hit some rough weather, he had to take a cab. And when he took his cab, Again, I think it ran into some kind of a rough weather there as well. And because of which he had to take refuge in some house. So when he knocked at the door, pretty late in the hour, couple opened the door and he was, relieved to see them that at least I'm getting some help now. And they welcomed him, Atiti Devo Bhav kind of a deal, right? So the lady of the house said, it's all with God's grace and mercy that, you could find this when he narrated his story, how his flight hit a rough weather and then his cab also got into some kind of a situation. She said, it's all God, God, God. She kept on saying God, God, God. So this guy was Dr. Bhaskar. He was a man of a scientific temperament. He said, why do you keep on bringing God for everything? Because she was bringing God for everything, right? In all of her discussions. But anyways, and then after a while, in the course of their discussions, he came to know that they were asking about what do you do and what they were telling about their son. They were telling what they do and they started telling about their son. They said, our son, he needs to undergo a very specific kind of a surgery. He was suffering from epilepsy. I forgot the technical term around it. In that particular surgery, you have to cut the brain into, separate it out, partitions. And that operation can only be carried out by one doctor in India. His name is Dr. Prasad. So his husband said, but my wife, when she came to know about it, she said, if God desires, he'll make it happen somehow. And on hearing that, you can imagine Dr. Prasad's reaction. These are the ways God acts actually, when you have faith on God. And Dr. Prasad, he was made to, his flight had to land, not go to, then his cab had to take that route, and then he would end up in the house where, they actually had prayed to God. I mean, left it to God that if God desires, Dr. Prasad, somehow it will get arranged. And Dr. Prasad came to their house itself. So these are the ways God can actually make our faith work. Only if we are willing to exercise it. Okay, good. That's slowly.
There are a couple of more questions in the chat if I could read them.
Sure.
I mean, one quick question from Sunita ji about the story was like, is it a true story? So I think it is.
It is a true story. Yeah. It's not a fiction. It's not a work. You can check it out. Swamiji has narrated. It's a true story.
Right.
You have to have faith. Okay, on that also. When I tell a story, it is a true story. Bit of faith is needed there too. Yes.
There's another question. How can I convince my family that I get vibes from people, but they never listen to me? Most of the time, I want my family to avoid people who give me bad vibes and try to save them, but they never listen. Is it their karma that they fall into their trap after receiving a warning from me, or do they simply believe that I am stupid?
Both, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you can't convince somebody. Everybody has their own way of going about their life. So it's very difficult to talk people into something. But if you pick a vibe and you have an expertise, I think over time you need to convince them it works. Okay, show them statistically 8 out of or 9 out of 10 times your vibe picking has worked, and you are not stupid at all as they would like to believe, and then they may start listening to you. But it's difficult to talk people into it. Everybody has their own journey. We can only hope for the best, but we can continue to exercise the best that we can do. Okay.
I have been keeping Anita ji on wait for so long, so I think I'll just unmute
Sure,
her.
Anita ji. And please fill out the feedback tracker as well in the meantime. And I think we have a few announcements too. You can make that, especially around the videos that we are creating for Gita Jayanti and a couple of other things. Let's make those announcements and then carry forward with our discussion.
Okay, announcement. So, of course, first thing is feedback tracker that has already been posted. So please check it out, fill it. You can put your comments, questions, anything over there. So please consider filling it as your attendance as well. Apart from that, Swamiji's India's tour is going on right now. Today is the last day for the ongoing retreat in Puri. So after this class, there'll be a lecture by Swamiji. So do not miss on that. Apart from, and then I think he will go to Delhi, Gurgaon for his tour, and I've put the dates and details about that. And then we have Gita Jayanti coming up. It's a 4-day event from December 1st to December 4th. And as part of the celebrations, we have also requested all of you to submit your videos. I have posted the link again in the chat where you can just upload your short video where you are wishing for Gita Jayanti in your native language. So please send in your videos maximum latest by Wednesday. After that, we will not be able to compile. We will just finally compile all the videos that would have arrived by Wednesday. That is it, I guess, about announcements.
Thank you. Please do fill out the feedback tracker and videos. Please do send out your love when the final product will come out. Everybody, you'll get an opportunity to do that. And I will wrap it up quickly because Swamiji's session is going to start. So a lot of you might like to catch up with that lecture. Beautiful Leelas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Swamiji is reciting. So let's quickly take 2 questions and then we'll I think the session is starting, right? Swamiji should wrap it up quickly.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we'll discuss, continue, we'll get into the third aspect of surrender. So this discussion is going to get more engaging for the next few sessions. Yes, Anita ji, you wanted to say something?
Radhe Radhe, Anita ji, please go ahead.
I'm just attending the Puri Shivir. I'm getting late, so I just
sure,
to tell this. And actually, I have a request. So, is it okay? I ask the question tomorrow,
Yeah,
or
sure.
shall I ask the question and wait for the
Yeah,
answer?
sure. Tomorrow is fine. Tomorrow is fine. Yeah.
Okay, then sure. Then I'll ask the question tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you. Shiramya, real quick.
Radhe Radhe, Shiramya ji. Shiramya ji. Oh, are you also at the retreat?
Oh, they're all at the retreat. Nice. We could have had a good get together next time, maybe. You can enjoy your retreat then. I think we all can join the lecture now.
I received a comment from Shiramya ji. I can probably read it.
Sure.
She was saying to Sunita ji's response, just wanted to add one comment that sometimes we might end up interpreting scriptures wrongly if we go about doing it by ourselves. So, but again, going by best intentions and leaving it to Krishna is truly surrender.
Until we have not found a guru, that's the best we can do. Finally, we have to land up with a guru. Because without guru, this journey cannot really go beyond a point. That is what our scriptures are telling us as well, including Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana. Wherever you go, without guru, this journey cannot really fructify. So, but until we find, that's the best we can do. Great. So thank you again for a very engaging discussion. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. We will continue with the same set of discussion on surrender and introduce the remaining principles as well.
Yeah, I have just reposted the link for the Shivir. Whoever wants to attend the talk, you may have to register if you haven't yet, but it's still worth it. So yeah.
Yeah, please do attend. That's very nice, actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leelas being told. And please do fill out the feedback tracker as well. And check out the link to upload your videos. And you'll have some exciting reels coming up with a talented bunch that we have in our Insta team. So just look out for that as well. They'll be released in due course of time. So thank you, everybody. Radhe Radhe. Have a wonderful day. Great rest of your evening. And I'll see you all tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you all. Radhe Radhe.